Hi Blues, this is Saumit Talks Chelsea and welcome back to another video on my channel. I'm really grateful for all the love and support you guys have shown over the past few uploads. To be honest, it's really overwhelming and I really hope we can continue the same love and support for future uploads as well. Today's video will be slightly different from the ongoing Transfer Talk series. Today, we will be creating a Chelsea tier list where we'll be segregating the current Chelsea squad into players who we would rather keep for the 22-23 season and players who we would rather sell. So like always, without much further ado, let's get started. This is how I decided to set up for this particular video. I have placed the camera in the bottom left part of the screen so you get a clear view of the tier list. If you guys don't know what a tier list is, let me give you a short explanation. So, in case of a tier list, we have different categories. For this video, I have just kept two categories. One is the keep category and the other is the sell category. And down below, we have all these Chelsea players who have been mentioned. What we are going to do essentially is that we are going to pick one player from this list and we are going to either put him in the keep category, which means we would rather see him in a Chelsea squad for next season, or we would place him in the sell category, which means we would rather have him sold and we would replace him for next season. This tier list was created by CFC Fahim, so do make sure to give him a follow on Twitter. So, Blues, first, let's look at the goalkeeping options that we have at Chelsea. First, we'll talk about Marcus Bettinelli. Personally, I think Bettinelli hasn't proven himself at Chelsea, and that's mainly because of lack of game time. But I would still keep Bettinelli for next season at least because it's always good to have some cover at the goalkeeping position. Next, we come to Kepa. Personally, I would like to keep Kepa at Chelsea as a backup, but realistically, I don't think it would happen. He's already 27 years old, and with the World Cup coming up, I don't think he would like to play second fiddle at Chelsea. I remember when we had bought him during the Sari days, he was really good. He had good reflexes, and he was making some world-class saves. But then he had a really bad patch where he got replaced by Caballero during Lampard. And ever since Mendy has signed, he hasn't been able to take the first spot at Chelsea. And rightly so. Mendy has been superb for us. So even though I would like to have Kepa at Chelsea, I think he would be sold for next season. Now coming to the number one goalkeeper at Chelsea, Mr. Edouard Mendy, the ever reliable between the sticks. I remember whenever I watch Mendy between the sticks, I feel really secure and safe because he has excellent reflexes, he's able to save shots from long range, and he also is good one-on-one. So currently, I think he's the best goalkeeper that we have at Chelsea. The only weakness Edouard Mendy has is that he is really weak in the penalty shootouts. I definitely think he has to improve on that part, and with some training and experience, he would get good at that too. If you guys remember, during the recent Carabao Cup final against Liverpool, he saved Mane's decisive penalty, even though we lost that match, but still that showed signs of improvement. So I'm really looking forward to what Mendy gives over the next few seasons, and I think with Mendy, we can have a goalkeeping position sorted for at least the next 1 or 2 seasons. I would keep Mendy in the key position. So Blues, now coming to defender section at Chelsea, first we'll be talking about Thiago Silva. This man is the definition of the saying, age like fine wine. It's really astonishing seeing a 37-year-old give a 9 out of 10 or even 10 out of 10 performances. He puts his heart out for every match that he plays for Chelsea. And to be honest, he has been the rock in the heart of the defense, and I believe he can be a real role model for all the youngsters at Chelsea. So I would definitely keep Silva for at least one season. Coming to Chalobah, he had a solid first season at Chelsea, and even though he had some dodgy and rough decisions in the middle where he was being replaced and he was put on the bench, I definitely think he deserves praise for a particular season. It's really not easy to come to the first team at Chelsea and perform for the first team too. So I really think he deserves praise for that. And for this reason, I would rather keep Chalobah in the keep section too. He's one for the future, and I would definitely see how he grows over the coming seasons. Now coming to Christensen, we already know this player has an agreement with Barcelona, so he would join Barcelona once the 22-23 season starts. Am I too sad that this player is going? No. Even though there were some people who call Christensen the Danish Maldini, even though he was good for us, but he wasn't someone who was irreplaceable. If we get some good defenders at Chelsea in this coming season, I definitely think we can replace Christensen. So anyway, all the best to Christensen at Barcelona, and I would put Christensen in the sell category. Coming to Rudiger, this is again one more player that we have sold this summer. At the end of his contract, he decided to join Real Madrid on a free transfer. This one particular transfer was really heartbreaking for me because Tony Rudiger was one player who was really passionate to play for Chelsea. I mean, I would miss his aggression, his passion, his funny attitude, and the pranks he did at Chelsea. You guys remember the run he had made in one particular match? He was one of the most lively person at Chelsea, and he was the most improved player under Tuchel. So even though I would have loved for him to stay at Chelsea, and there was chances in January that he would stay, But Marina, I think, messed this one up completely. It's really tough for me to say goodbye to Rudiger, but it has to be done. So I would put Rudiger in the sell category too. Now coming to Alonso, the man also known as the bad boy at Chelsea. Even though Alonso received criticism from the fan base, but he still performed in few matches. He was the only person who was scoring some vital goals for Chelsea once Chilwell got injured. But the one thing that he lacked was consistency and manners because he fell out both with Lampard and even Tuchel recently. So I would just like to say thanks for your service, but it's time to move on from Alonso. So I would rather sell Alonso this season. Coming to our captain, Aspilicueta, this would be quite a controversial decision with many fans wanting him to be sold, but I would rather keep Aspilicueta for at least one more season. This season would be a transition phase for Chelsea in the defense, and I think the new players who would be coming, they would need someone to look up to, like Thiago Silva and Aspilicueta. He has been at Chelsea for 9 years, and I think the fairy tale continues for one more year. I would definitely keep Aspilicueta for at least one season. Coming to Sar, there are people who think this guy is not actually a defender and that he has scammed. At this point, I think it's really difficult because we are already losing so many defenders. We have already lost Christensen and Rudiger on three transfers, and we would be selling Alonso this summer for sure. He has already agreed his terms with Barcelona, and I think this would eventually go through during the rest of the days of the transfer window. So we cannot lose our entire back line. So for this reason, I would like to keep Malang Sarr at Chelsea. And now coming to young Colville, this is someone whom I would refer to as a future prospect. We can definitely keep him. If he might not be in the first squad, we can at least give him some matches and game time during the Carabao Cup. But just based on performances in the Championship, we cannot make him the starter at Chelsea. Chelsea is a really competitive team and they're really looking to compete for some major silverware next season. So it's really tough and difficult to put so much trust and responsibility on young Colville. So even though I would keep him, I would not make him a starter at Chelsea. Now coming to Reece James, personally, in my humble opinion, he is the best right back in the Premier League. He has excellent dribbling skills, he is very strong, and he has pinpoint crossing too. And he can even shoot too. We have seen him score so many goals this season. If you have seen the interview of his father, he said that ever since he was small, he always dreamed to make it up at Chelsea. And now that he's a starter at Chelsea, I don't think he's going anywhere. And the future of Chelsea's right back is secure. So I would keep James in the keep category. Coming to Chilwell, Chilwell for me is the starting left back at Chelsea. There was no one better than him, even Alonso and Emerson, and he was scoring many goals too, like Reece. I remember he was on a scoring spree where he scored goals in like successive 3 or 4 matches. He was the main goal scoring threat along the left hand side, and ever since his injury, it really affected our season. So I really hope he rediscovers his pre injury form and gets to score more goals and assists for Chelsea in the coming season. So he's also a definite keeper. Now coming to Emerson, this one might depend on the transfer situation. So in case we buy Mark Cucurella from Brighton and Hove Albion, then I would rather sell Emerson. But in case that transfer doesn't go through, I would keep Emerson as a backup at Chelsea. So I think he is also a solid left back and he would be a good cover for Chilwell at Chelsea. So yeah, he also goes in the keep section. Now guys, let's move on to the midfield options we have at Chelsea. First, let's talk about Mason Mount. For me, he is the future Chelsea captain and in the same bracket as Reece James as a Chelsea true blue. He is a good box-to-box midfielder and he drives the ball forward really well for Chelsea. I'm really impressed with him this season and it's really deserved that he won the Chelsea Players Player of the Year. He had both double figures in goals and assists for this season, so he has really proved his worth. And only good things to come from him in the future and I hope he becomes the next Lampard. And we need to build this team around him. So for me, even he is a definite keep. Coming to Gallagher, Conor Gallagher had a breakthrough season at Crystal Palace on loan where he won the Crystal Palace Player of the Year. So he already has proven his worth and that he deserves to be fighting for a starting position in Chelsea midfield. I've seen reports that he and Tuchel have already spoken and that Tuchel has guaranteed him that he would be considered for selection for Chelsea's first team. So that's really good news for Conor. All his hard work is really paying off and I really want to see him succeed at Chelsea. So definitely like Mason, I would want to keep Gallagher at Chelsea too. Coming to Mateo Kovacic, for me, he is the best number 8 at Chelsea that we have, and he has really good dribbling skills. The only problem that Kovacic has is that he lacks finishing. He needs to practice shooting, and he needs to take some long shots. I remember his long shot against Liverpool in the 2-2 draw at Bridge was really good, but I think it was a fluke. But yeah, if he can add some goals to his name, he would be a complete midfielder. So even Kovacic goes in the squad for next season. Now coming to Ruben Loftus-Cheek, many fans would disagree with me on this, but I think it's time that we sell Ruben. He has been here now ever since he was young and he has been playing games from the Sari era. I remember he had a very big injury due to which he was out for a season. He has not been able to perform to the likes what Tuchel wants. And with Gallagher coming, I think we will have better options than RLC. So either we sell him or he goes on loan to Lazio, where there's reports that Sari wants him. But let's see what happens in the transfer window. Now moving to N'Golo Kante, I definitely think Kante needs to regain his old form. The last year when we were in the Champions League and we won it, he was really vital in the final Champions League game where he had so many interceptions. Recently, there have been too many injuries and too many errors from him, and I definitely think he needs to regain his old form back. He also needs to practice on his passing and long ball accuracy. I sometimes see Kante missing easy passes. In my humble opinion, I definitely think on his day, Kante is the best defensive midfielder in the world. I would keep Kante. Now coming to Jorginho, this one also is a really difficult decision for me because both Jorginho and Kante only have 1 year at Chelsea left. So there's high chances that both could leave on free. But I think Chelsea wouldn't take that risk. And there have been links that Jorginho himself wants to go back to Italy. Personally, I think the high pressing Premier League doesn't suit him. He's a good passer, but I think he would thrive more in the Italian league. So if I had to lose one between Jorginho and Kante, with already Jorginho being linked with moves to Italy, and I think he would be the one who would be sold at Chelsea. So I would put Jorginho in the sell category. Now coming to young Billy Gilmore, there are reports that Gilmore doesn't want to go out on loan, and if he doesn't get starting spot at Chelsea, he would rather be sold. Personally, I would like him to be loaned again because already the Chelsea midfield is stacked, and if he buy another midfielder like Rice, I don't think he'll get his position. I remember during Lampard's time, he played some really good games. I remember that game against Liverpool where he performed really well. So if he can impress Tuchel, I'm ready to see Gilmore in the squad for next season. So yeah, I'm definitely keeping him. Now coming to Saul Niguez, this was probably one of the worst transfers that had happened for Chelsea. It's definitely not the top worst transfer, but yeah, we had secured him on a loan deal with a buy option for I guess 35 million. But I don't think Chelsea will be going for that option. He was really bad for Chelsea and he played very few games. I think maybe 5 or 6 games in total. And in these games too, he was really sloppy. He misplaced passes like Jorginho. He would rather fit much into the slow-paced La Liga. So for this reason, I would not buy Saul and I would keep him in the sell category. Guys, we come to the interesting part. We come to the attacking options we have at Chelsea. And all of these attackers haven't been able to prove much this season. They have been really miserable at times and they've been missing sitters, which other attackers would definitely score. So first we have Romelu Lukaku. You guys definitely know my opinion on Lukaku from the last video. This is some player that I definitely don't want to see at Chelsea, mainly because of his ambition and that he himself doesn't want to be at Chelsea. Like I said, if a player wants to prove himself, I'm all up for it. You can work hard and prove on the pitch, but Lukaku has been really bad for a season, and I hope he gets sold to Inter. So for me, it's an easy sell. Now coming to Kai Havertz. Kai Havertz for me has been good in spells for this particular season. He has been good in some matches that he has played, and he has been okay in the others. But he's still very young. I think he's 21 or 22 years old, so he still has a long way to go. And I'm really looking forward to see how he develops at Chelsea. So for me, he's definitely a keep. Now coming to Ziyech, this is one player who I think hasn't got much chances at Chelsea. Players like Pulisic, Werner have got more games and they have performed really bad and they still get selected. But with Ziyech, I don't know what the problem is. Maybe it's his attitude, but I would still keep Ziyech in the Chelsea squad for at least one season. And I think he still has to prove his outer strong. And that's why I would keep Ziyech in the keep section. Now coming to Christian Pulisic, Captain America for me. To be quite honest, guys, he has disappointed me. You guys remember the Leicester game where he could have made the score 2-1 and we could have won the game, but he missed an open goal. Those kind of misses are really unforgivable for me. I would like to sell him, but with the current American ownership, I don't think they would be selling him because Pulisic sells a lot of t-shirts in America. So we'll be giving up on a lot of revenue. If he does not prove himself by next season, I think he knows where the door is. Now coming to Timo Werner, I think this is one player who is on really high wages and he's not been performing well in the past few seasons. I would sell Werner. For me, all he does is run quick. He has some good runs, but there is no end product to him. And for that reason, I would sell him at Chelsea. And now coming to Hudson-Odoi, this is another player who has been at Chelsea for a really long time. I remember he made his starts during the Sarri era and he was really good back then. But then under Lampard, he was not good. Under Tuchel, again, he was not good. And he has had a big injury this time. Either you have to send him out on a loan or you have to sell him. But I think he has been given a lot of chances, and for those reasons, I would consider selling Odoi. Now coming to Armando Broja, this is one talented striker that we have at Chelsea. He's also from the youth academy, and I think he has a big future up ahead of him. He had some good matches at Southampton during his loan, so hopefully Broja proves to the hype that Chelsea fans think he is. So Broja goes in the keep section. Now coming to the youth, first we have Harvey Vale. For me, he's a definite keep. He's also one for the future, and he's a really good winger too. Moving on to Ethan Ampadu. You guys remember he was on loan at Venezia this season in the Serie A. Unfortunately, Venezia got relegated this season. I don't think we'll be able to guarantee him first team minutes in this Chelsea squad. And for me, it's between Ampadu and Gilmore. So I definitely don't think Ampadu would get enough chances at Chelsea. And I think this is one player that we have to look at selling. I know this is really controversial, but I don't think he'll get any chances at Chelsea. With this midfield, he won't get any game time at Chelsea. So either we send him out on loan. Coming to Ian Matson, this is one Chelsea youth academy product who has also a really bright future ahead of him. People have been praising his performances, and I'm really looking forward to what he can bring. So definitely another loan for him, and I would keep him at Chelsea too. So, Blues, this was my Chelsea tier list where I showed you the list of players that I would rather keep at Chelsea and the list of players that I wish would be sold. Let me know your views and thoughts in the comment section down below if you agreed or disagreed with my decisions and what changes would you be making. I'll be eagerly waiting for your responses. Also, before leaving, I would like to request you guys to give this video a like, click on the subscribe button if you haven't already, and turn on your bell notifications so you won't miss on any of my future uploads. Until next time, take care, Blues, and see you soon. Goodbye.